Okay, I am here with Dr. Hasan Akram. This will prove, I think, to be a rather interesting uh, discussion today. Hello, Hasan.
Hi, David. Good to be here.
Really good to have you here. And I think those watching will find this quite exciting. So, Dr. Hasan is one of those people that I envy, but also get a little bit frustrated by because you have many fingers in many pies and you do that successfully. When I try to do that, unfortunately, I'm less able to do that successfully. But I wonder, with a little bit of brain training, whether I might be able to improve my many finger pied entrepreneurialism. So, Dr. Hasan Akram is a serial entrepreneur, angel investor, speaker, podcaster, computer scientist, and he's the founder of various different companies, tech companies, and more recently, a business along with his two sisters, I believe, Hasan, called, and the business is called Brainvincible, which we're going to be touching on quite a bit, I think, in this podcast. And actually, this discussion very much will be about brain performance, brain optimization, and also linking that to human consciousness as well. So, over to you, Hasan. I wonder if you could just give us a brief synopsis, an introduction uh, to your background.
Thank you, David. I think what you have said is describes me perfectly. I like being called a serial entrepreneur. I'm a computer scientist. I studied computer science, had my PhD in computer science. I'm also an author, but entrepreneurship is something that I am really from my heart, an entrepreneur. So my background is, especially today in your podcast, we do want to talk about the high performance bit of it, the brain bit of it. So that journey started when in my early 30s, around 2013, 14, especially in 14, when I started my first company. And my company, it operates in the automotive domain, automotive software, driverless car, AI, and all those. And I was traveling 3 days a week, about 40 to 50 minutes drive from here where I live. I live in the north of Munich. Beautiful, beautiful place. I was driving 3 days a week to Audi, which is like 50 minutes drive. And when I came back, I had no energy. It's like, I was thinking, am I getting old? What's happening? And I just couldn't take it anymore. I was in the morning drinking coffee after coffee, sugar to get myself going, but this was getting to a point that I had no energy anymore. And then I came across Dave Asprey's book, Bulletproof, the book called Bulletproof. I read that book and implemented some of those, one or two very basic ones, like not taking any sugar. Very simple. Taking a cold shower, bulletproof coffee. I think these are the three things I first implemented. Very simple to do. It's not, you don't have to change the world to do these three things. And the amount of energy I was having, I was thinking, how did I achieve all this in my life with such low performing brain with this little three things? And also in Dave Asprey's book, he talked about his 40 years of Zen meditation training, right? That reminded me back when I was 15, 16 years old, I came across a book of meditation. They didn't call it meditation back then. Back then meditation was not a trendy term. It was still, people were not taking it seriously. It's the Silva Mind Control Method, the name of the book. You can tap into your alpha frequency and program yourself to do amazing things. Back then, that actually was a life changer for me. That kind of reminded me, hey, I had this kind of things, right? So this is where the journey started. That, first of all, I mean, the way I describe is I was working too much on my mind. So this is kind of like the software, but you have to also think about the hardware, which is the body, like the wetware itself, right? I was not thinking of my body, the brain. And this is where when it was an eye opener for me to, like, I can think about, programming my mind I can have all that sort of a thing, which I was doing from the age of like ever since I came across Silva, I was doing on and off, but I was not thinking about the body as a whole. And when these two work together, combine together, I think this is a must. You have to take care of both. And then I talked to my sisters about it. That hey, we have to do something about it. These three simple things can bring that much changes in my life. I mean, this is only the beginning. So this is how my journey started.
Yeah, you had a real aha moment, didn't you? Much like me. I mean, with me and the delving into the cold, and then discovering breath work, that was my aha moment of, oh, okay, I'm capable of much more. And oh, this seems to work much better now. So it's amazing, isn't it, when we have these experiences and then we're further driven by the energetic experience that we've just enabled. And it does feel like you've switched on, you've turned the dial up to 11, to use, in the sense that something that you really perceived you were less capable of, maybe due to age or something along those lines. But when you discover these methods, these practices that all of a sudden almost invoke the sort of the not quite the child in you, but almost invoke that sort of 20-year-old person that you were many years ago, and you feel so much more alive again. So, okay, so that was your catalyst. Clearly, though, you had, as you say, been very successful. You were driven, you were capable, you'd gained your PhD, you'd created a tech company. When you had this catalyst moment, was it a case of it being, oh, I see another opportunity here, as in, from a business perspective, or was it slightly more altruistic? In other words, hang on a second, if I can do this for myself, other people are going to want to know about this?
Great question. I think my motivation was that I want to know more about it. I want to educate myself more about it, right? And certainly a business aspect, I'm an entrepreneur. If I want to do research, if I can get my research funded by some commercial activities, this is amazing. I still believe that we are, to be absolutely commercially successful, like to turn it into a $100 million company, we're a little bit too early. The awareness among people that you need to take care of your brain, your spirituality, even. We are getting there, but we are a little too early. But what my primary motivation was to educate myself, was to try out new things. So what I wanted to do is the technology. We wanted to combine technology along with meditation. How do we see the brainwave when we're meditating? These are the things I wanted to explore myself and understand where the technology is and what can we do better. Because the technology has evolved in the last 20, 30, 40 years. However, I do not think that we understand our brain. I mean, this is a fact that we don't understand. We don't understand our brain. We also the way we see the brain scans. There was a book I was reading the other day where the author is describing it as something, if you had an image from the moon or something of a baseball bat or baseball ball, the image that we get of our brain is something comparable to that. It's like not that advanced. I mean, we don't really see much. We don't really know much. So I think we're just beginning to get there. And I wanted to participate in that. So you can definitely say that, hey, you're a computer scientist. I mean, this is neuroscience. So this is what, I mean, I am a kind of a guy, I don't think there is a formal university qualification necessary in order to get into a knowledge domain, right? I mean, in 2022, you can learn anything and everything if you want You just have to want to and put the work to. You can learn everything. And I think I want to know everything as much as possible. So I'm kind of like, I would tell people that I'm a Leibniz kind of a guy. Leibniz was the last person in this planet who knew everything that existed during his time. Of course, then we kind of like branched out physics, biology, chemistry, and all those. But it doesn't have to be like this. There is also we've seen the problem of really specialization, especially in cardiology, right? I mean, they just focus on one organ, and they don't think about there are other things out there that might affect the overall health. So specialization is necessary, but just focusing on one thing is also not always the best.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, our medical industry is fixated by that, isn't it? And you mentioned their cardiology, and I think there's not enough thought, understanding going into the fact that neurons are present in most organs. So we have these multiple brains around the body. I wonder, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I wonder, is science really trying to catch up with spiritual understanding? I get the impression that there are many spiritual teachings that possibly have a better understanding about what's going on up here than science does, because science looks for facts. Science wants, an absolute, which is what's so silly about science sometimes. It wants this kind of categorical sort of absolute answer to it, doesn't it?
Absolutely. David, you brought up a very important and very exciting topic, science and spirituality. So let's first define what is the purpose of science and what is the purpose of spirituality, and then talk about it. My definition of the purpose of science and purpose of spirituality is the same. They're both of the domain. They're trying to unveil the truth. That's the sole purpose. Science does it in a very objective way, like you mentioned, facts and figures. It's a very objective way. The objective realm comes from our perception of reality. So that is the limitation of science, our perception of reality. So David Hoffman already mathematically showed in his book that this is a simulation, right? I mean, what we see, reality is a simulation. So that is the limitation of science. But science is something, I'm a scientist. I love science. There's no way I'm denying or it's not a show where I'm going to bash science. I'm totally for science. But whenever I'm navigating in a domain, I want to know my limitation. My limitation is my perception of reality. Beyond that, I cannot perceive anything. Now, the objective of spirituality is also to unveil the truth, but in a very abstract manner, which is not understandable, comprehensible by our intellect. It goes beyond our intellect. Now, some people will rightly disregard that. Okay, this is beyond our intellect. That doesn't exist. I understand them, but as a scientist, I think if I say that there's nothing existing beyond my intellect, that's just not a scientific statement. Right? That's how I see it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I do wonder, well, I believe, what we have now is something called quantum physics. And quantum physics almost bridges the gap, doesn't it, between science and reality?
Absolutely. Quantum physics almost bridges the gap between spirituality and science, right? I mean, there is so much beyond our intellect that is out there.
Yeah. That is a fascinating subject in itself, isn't it? But let's bring it back to what we're currently capable of. Because I think actually, if we were all to choose a spiritual path and go and hide in a cave for 20 years, we'd probably discover a lot more. But given that that's not particularly realistic and nor very interesting for most of us, well, actually, it would be. But the problem is we're chained, aren't we, to all these commitments and distractions that we've created in the modern world. So let's assume that is less realistic. What we are capable of at the moment is making use of technology to optimize our brain, open our brain, expand our brain, you could say, exercise. I think there's a lot to do with mind-based fitness. I think if we consider the brain as a muscle, which I'm guessing a lot of the training that you do is in part that, then we can get a lot more out of this than we ever imagined. So from your perspective, what are we capable of? In other words, let's take average Joe, who possibly has done a little bit of exercise, diet is fairly average, could be improved. Could you take that person through the methods that you're aware of, and almost not quite in, I don't know if you remember the movie in the 80s called Lawnmower Man. This is a movie where a gardener was taken in by a scientist and given these brain training exercises that totally blew his mind, and gave him this incredible capability. What is possible now? What could we do with the average person when it comes to optimizing and improving their brain performance?
Great question. So I think our brain, I'm a perfect example of that. My brain was not optimized. You mentioned when I talked about my experience, you were kind of like paraphrasing and saying I felt like a 20 years old again when I did this. I was thinking that I didn't feel like a 20 years old. Even in my 20s, I didn't have that much energy. So I loved I used to eat junk food, partied with friends and all that sort of thing you do in your early 20s, and never had that optimal clarity. Probably my teenage time, yes, but and in 20s definitely not. But when I totally did an alcohol ban for myself, then left sugar, like totally zero sugar, bulletproof coffee, and all those. That brought so much clarity. That's not even comparable to my 20s. So yeah, I think my example would be not the best because I had a very unhealthy life. And then my delta was so stark. Like the difference was amazing. But you're talking about an average person. It's kind of like an average, not that unhealthy lifestyle, average lifestyle. We can definitely do improvement. Now, let me take you back a little bit toward my journey. When I first did my meditation thing when I was 16, that changed my life. That changed my life totally. I would have been a different person if that was not the case. I couldn't even speak to girls. I was bullied in high school. I had a very, very difficult situation, and that meditation, or whatever you call it, the silver training, changed me completely. I had no fear. I could talk to people. I could talk to girls. I could do many things that I couldn't do before. So that changed my life totally. And then fast forward, one time during college, I was studying computer science, and I had a terrible breakup. And I was again devastated. I didn't know how to. I had no energy. Then I found, hey, I have those tapes of the silver learning and stuff, and that really helped me. Why don't I listen to them one more time? And I listened to them. All my anxiety and everything was gone. And that was the semester I scored all A's. None of those, in no semester I scored all of this. This can be a coincidence, but I realized that there must be a correlation. Again, you don't practice these things regularly. I didn't. You move on with your life. And then I thought, when Dave Asprey talked about it again, that okay, this time he's adding technology to it, and I added technology to it. This is a game changer, because the problem with most of the newbies in meditation is you meditate, but you don't really understand what's going on. You don't feel anything. What is meditation? Deepak Chopra has a wonderful saying, you think of nothing. And how do you tell people to think nothing? How do you even understand what is nothing if you're thinking something? Now, here's where I want to talk about my experience. I was in a alpha training with all electrodes on my head. I could get feedback, right? So whenever I'm generating more alpha, when my alpha wave is going high, I should get, positive feedback. So what was happening is I was trying to relax. I was trying to get, nothing is working. Nothing is working. The moment I gave up, forget it. I just relaxed. I kind of like didn't think about anything. My alpha went up. And then I thought, okay, this is the trick. I have to relax this way. Then it got better. The moment it was getting better, I was thinking consciously, hey, wow, my alpha is getting better. It went down. The moment I was thinking something. The trick is, here should be nothing. If you can totally empty it, yeah, you're in a relaxed state. And that's very difficult. Without feedback, if I think about when I was 16, my meditation time and all those, probably it worked, but it's a mere coincidence that it worked. I had no tricks. I didn't even know what was that. I just followed the protocol. Probably it worked, but it was not black and white. I mean, you didn't see anything, but with technology, you can see it. That is amazing. And that you can, the progress is remarkable. Dave Asprey called this 40 years of Zen. Like Zen meditation has required 40 years to get there, which you can do in 7 days. I don't know if that claim is true or not. I don't care. It worked for me. And it works for so many people. It's going to change your life. It's going to make you a total different person. Your IQ is going to go up. I think on an average, there's a claim up to 12 IQ points. Your IQ is going to go up on an average. Your social skill is going to go up. Your anxiety, forget those anxiety meditation. Your anxiety is going to go away. You will think in a different manner. When I do this, like at least for 6 months, people around me, they realize that I'm so relaxed. They feel the energy. So this is coming back to your question. For an average person, it can be life-changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can totally understand why. One of the things I teach people is how to get out their own way. I think we are so impeded by this default mode network and the chit chat that goes on, the fear-based response, which is largely what it is. We are driven, well, not driven, but we are bound by fear in many regards. And by the sounds of it, you were, when you were describing not being able to talk to girls, not being able to perhaps talk in public, and so we're capable of so much more simply by learning how to quieten this. In some of the flow state training that I do, it's all about this. It's about achieving hypofrontality. When you can slow down this, what is effectively the prefrontal cortex or default mode network, and then your brain is that much more capable simply because the energy can go elsewhere. All the energy that was going into these fear-based responses can then be attributed elsewhere to other parts of the brain. So what you're describing then is that combining meditation, and I think you're right about meditation in today's world. I have one-to-one clients with people that are quite often depressed. And I do say to them, there's no point in you trying meditation right now. It's not going to work. Your brain is not there right now. It's too driven by this sort of Neanderthal brain. Excuse the noise in the background. That will now finish. What I often have them do is more mindful practice, because mindfulness is somewhat easier than meditation. And over time, we work on ways to slow down this prefrontal cortex. What you're saying, though, is by combining meditation with technology, that you can achieve more. Now, I use binaural beats. I use isochronic tones on the music tracks that I create for breath work. So I'm used to brain technology from that perspective, this sort of brain entrainment. But what technology are you referring to when you...
Right. Great question. I love your question, David. So first of all, the technology that you're talking about, you're bringing in external influence in the brain, right? That's okay. There's nothing wrong in that if it works for you. What I'm saying is you do not bring any external influence in your brain. You listen to your own brainwave and a feedback. So we will electrode and tell you, okay, it depends on what we do. Let me describe the protocol real shortly, how we do. When a client comes to us, what we try to do is take a brain map of that person. So my brain map is like, very, very, I'm very active, the entire neural, like, very active. It's like hyperactive brain. You can
both
call
left
it
and right hemispheres, you mean?
Yeah, different parts of the brain. Yeah, and this is, I'm not a big fan of it because you're actually doing it with a database of like, norm. What is norm? I also tell my clients, look, I mean, this is just a reference. Don't get too much hang on to it,
right,
because this is like, your brain is your brain. The only reference we care about is your own brain. But just to see where you are and what's your goal. So a person like me, my goal is to calm down, go to the calm state. There can be a person who has no motivation to calm. They can actually have a different goal. But most of our clients, they want to calm down, right? High performers, they're entrepreneurs, they want to calm down. So what we do is we give them a feedback when their alpha wave are going high. And if the alpha is low, you don't hear the feedback. So you are trying to relax, and you are actually listening to your own brain. This is not external, right? Wow. It's just an extension of your brain. And whenever you're relaxing, generating more alpha, the feedback goes up. Then oh, this was alpha, this was meditative state. And you try more to get into that. And we have a protocol. This protocol for your audience. If you don't have energy, don't have technology right away, just use this protocol. I guarantee you'll get immediate results. It is a combination of forgiveness and gratitude. I have a formula: the forgiveness and gratitude equals abundance. So forgiveness is super powerful. I kind of rediscovered my root. I don't know if you have read my book by now. So I wrote about my background, my childhood. I come from a Sufi family. Sufism is what we were taught, a very spiritual way of growing up. And we start with forgiveness. That's the first thing. We seek forgiveness. And the moment we go through that part, it's like you feel so relieved. All the bad energy is gone, right? Forgiveness is super powerful. There is this Stanford professor, if you want to read more about forgiveness, the power of forgiveness, wrote this book, Science of Forgiveness, amazing book. So forgiveness is superpower. It is going to calm you down. And this is like all the bad energies released. It's not easy to forgive. So there's like nuances to that, which we can come later to.
And then it's forgiveness of others as well as yourself, isn't it?
It is absolutely. It's forgiveness of yourself, forgiveness of others. And, what we teach is to be specific. If you're specific, it works. It works better. Because it's easy to say, I forgive everything. What does everything mean? Yeah. Your brain is going to hold on to those grudges, right? Yeah. So after forgiveness, if you tap into gratitude, that's it. You will be in a state of mind that is just, if there's any such thing as nirvana, probably this is semi-nirvana, right? So that's what you want to go to. And if you also put those electrode and take the feedback, then you'll see when you're forgiving, really forgiving, letting that energy go. And when you're tapping in the state of gratitude, your alpha is going up, and you feel amazing. You feel more creative. The left part of your brain lights up. We have all these scientific evidences. We're talking about science, right?
That I really, really love that. Because on the one hand, it's very simple in its description. Not
Yeah.
easy to practice for
Yeah.
some initially, though, like all practices like this, it gets easier. I was just thinking then actually that with some of the soma breath work stuff that I do, where you're breathing in a rhythm, you're listening, as I said, to these isochronic tones that affect the brainwave pattern. And then you are, during the breath hold phases, so it's an exhale breath hold, it's pranayama based. During the exhale breath hold phases, we quite often have people work on gratitude. Now you're getting me thinking though, because of course, in some way, because of the external stimuli from the music and the isochronic tones, is that confusing things for the brain? Maybe at that point we need to shut off that stimuli so that the client can totally tune into that gratitude without that external. It's really made me think.
So talking about gratitude, David, let me tell you, share a very personal story. I told you that I started my second company with two of my sisters. I'm the eldest in the family. And quite frankly, I'm not sure if my sister would listen to this. I hope not. This was not easy with sisters, with family,
Of
right?
course.
It was one of the biggest challenge I had. And we had a lot of problems. And I was thinking, we don't have any problem with this, that we don't like each other. We're very close, but we do not get along when we're doing things together. And I was thinking how to solve this problem. It's about 2 months ago. I was thinking, hey, why don't I try gratitude? I write down the things that I'm grateful for because of my sisters. I did that for 2 days. The third day, I went to have dinner at one of my sisters. My other sister was there. I cannot remember in the last 5 years we had such an amazing evening. Three of us. They didn't change. It's only my perspective. We did not have a fight ever since.
Wow.
This is the power of gratitude. They didn't change. They don't know that I did this. If they don't listen to it, they won't know. But it worked. This was the most difficult challenge, I would say, I've ever solved.
I love that. We could call that, one of the terms I quite often use, rightly or wrongly, is hack, because I think sometimes you can use these terms for people that are new to this sort of experience and training, and they tune into that word hack. And I do think things like that are kind of a hack. It's a way of rewiring the mind. And when you practice it daily, it's almost as if you can say to your mind, it's okay. Actually, the way you perceived the world previously is working off of old data. It's working off of old knowledge. I'm now updating. I've given you an upgrade, as it were. And you can now see the world differently because of this. And all it takes, as you say, is this daily gratitude. And it can be in the form of gratitude diaries. It could be in the form of when you wake up, before you move out of bed, you simply sit there with your thoughts and think about what you're grateful for. And the funny thing was, or funny thing is rather, 10 years ago, had we had this conversation, or had I been watching this podcast, I would have, and I don't mind telling you this, I would have thought, yeah, right, okay, yeah, that's a bit simple, that's a bit fluffy, that's not, but it totally is. And what I think is really interesting is, especially those, I'm sure that you have clients, Silicon Valley based clients sometimes, who number one, quite often seeking the quick fix. That's unfortunately a problem. That's a disease that we have in society, isn't it? I've got a problem. What's the easiest way of solving that? What's the quick fix? Can I take a pill for it? Can I do something active that will solve that problem? And of course, there generally isn't quick fixes to do the deeper stuff. And some people will take certain substances in order to achieve these states, or to achieve not enlightenment, but sort of a lighter mind. The beauty with this is its simplicity and the fact that everybody can do it, and it doesn't take long to achieve this. I mean, the fact that you did it in 2-3 days is amazing. I think for some other people, it could take a little bit longer, but
and you know what,
go on.
You know what, David, that if you think about it, I have tried other protocols with them. I have also tried that, hey, everybody will have to say something they're grateful about, WhatsApp chat, you know, didn't work. It's like really the focus is not others. Back then I was focused, how can I influence them? And that was a wrong way to think about the world. Focus is you. The reality is a reflection of you.
Mm.
Now, this is where quantum physics, as you mentioned in the beginning, like, the card is, only being created when you're actually looking at it,
Yeah.
right? It's not the Einsteinian physics that the cards already dealt is fixed. No, reality is different. It's like quantum physics. So they didn't change. They don't even know. It's me. It's not them. Everywhere, it's like you. The focus is you.
Mm. Yeah. That is amazing. I think also when you realize this as well, that's another aha moment, isn't it? When you have that, it's just this liberating moment, isn't it? In some respects. Okay, so here's a question for you, Hasan. Let's say somebody watching this right now is, what should we say? They are overwhelmed by negative psychology, perhaps, or maybe they're overwhelmed by their job and the fact that it's particularly stressful. So, of course, that would come with negative psychology. What would you recommend that person right now that might well be sitting here watching right now, but also being distracted by their mobile phone? Their legs are probably jigging up and down because their mind is just too active. They're not in the moment. They're not present with this. They're getting hopefully some knowledge, um, some tips, and I'm sure that they want to do something about their predicament. But what would you recommend tomorrow when they wake up? What would be the thing that you would suggest that they try doing?
The first thing to do is to make a decision that you want to change. A lot of people don't make the decision. They try out things without making that decision. The decision is the number one thing. Now, the problem of our time is we consume a lot of information, be it social media, be it. So there is one type, they consume junk information. Okay, that's bad inherently. Also, those people who are listening to podcasts, listening to um, motivational speeches and reading books, even those people, um, they're consuming so much. They're thinking they're achieving something by consuming a lot of information, but you may consume as much as you want. If you don't make the decision and act upon it, it's not gonna work. I can write, I can talk about this in 10 podcasts, nothing is going to work. I can read all the books of the world, nothing is going to work. I can have coaches, nothing is going to work if I don't take the action. So make a decision that this is what you want in your life. That's the number one thing. I think a lot of people who are even our clients, we can understand, we feel it that they haven't decided it. They're just trying. Okay, I want to try this. Now, once you've decided that this is where you want to go, you can try. You'll have to change strategies. There's nothing wrong in that. But that's where a lot of people are, way behind. But they are listening to podcasts, reading books. They think they're personally developing, but the fundamental part, the decision, is missing. Now, nobody um, became successful without intent. You have to have a strong intent toward it. And once you have that, all the hacks, David, you are giving, your training, or the trainings that we provide is going to help you get there. One of them or all of them, some of them, a combination of them, you'll have to engineer it for yourself. When you wake up, make a decision. And what happened? What helped me is writing down. Write down 10 things you want to achieve in your life. In a piece of paper, and keep doing that every day, every morning. That's the first step. Without that, it's just you're that is the number.
Playing the game.
People miss that.
Yeah. I'm totally with you there. Intention is key. Really is,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah, I remember when I was doing clinical hypnotherapy, and we would get clients, or I would get clients of people wanting to quit smoking. And then I'd ask them, why are you here? And then they'd say, oh, yeah, my wife asked me to go. She urged me to go. And I said, okay, there's no point in you being here. You may as well leave now.
Yeah,
Without
totally.
intention to quit, it's never going to work. And it's exactly the same, isn't it, with everything in our lives? If we really want something, as you say, yeah, you could continue in this world gathering information, gathering knowledge, listening to people like you. You're never going to get what you want unless that intention is clear and you believe that. That's I'm glad you said that. I love talking to you actually, Hasan, because there's so much of what you're saying is, I'm going to use a horrible word. I don't know why I'm using it, but synergistic with how I perceive the world. Where are you going now with all this? I mean, you've optimized yourself, and I know that you're probably like me in that you consider this a journey. You don't ever consider you getting to a point where you can say, I've figured it all out, because that's not what this life is all about. It's exploratory, isn't it? And it's the enthusiasm to keep learning which drives us. So I know that you will continue to optimize your mind and your body in various different ways, both spiritually and other. But what about as far as your business is concerned? Where are you going with this now? What's next?
So what I want to do, especially with Brainvincible, I want to kind of like this business and my life journey will go hand in hand. So what I've just talked about, these are the things I've already experimented, tried, and some of those didn't work, some of this worked, and some of this I really believe in, I invested in. What I want to do is now I want to have a high performance coaching program. So I myself is about to hire a full-time high performance coach. The job of that high performance coach will be to just research on me what is needed, because high performance is again very individualistic thing. It's not a one size fits all. So I have a personal trainer, but I need a high performance coach from my diet, from all those technology, like Wim Hof, right? Is it something that I'm ready for? And what will it bring it? So the high performance coach will not only do things that the person can with me, but also would explore. Then like there's this thing that you can actually do. If you read Dave Sinclair's book, the technology of longevity is amazing, right? So I'm taking some of those supplements like M&M and all those. So we will also explore in that field. What can we do? Can we analyze my DNA to find out what could be more optimal for me? So I run 7 companies, and I'm trying to write 2 books a year. So I need to be really a high performer, right? So I think I'm not even 1% optimized. This is what I believe, but I'm doing much better than 2014, way better. There's no question about it, and people feel that. My personal trainer feels that. But there are way more things like the Wim Hof. I've never taken an ice bath. You have done that, right? I've taken cold shower, but never an ice bath. I'm too scared of that, but I want to go there. I want to go there. I want to do that. So maybe you can tell a little bit about your ice bath experience.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I urge you to do it. And in some respects, sometimes ice baths are easier than cold showers. So
Really?
definitely hold that in your mind now, because you've got the initial shock, okay, when you get in the ice. But as long as you focus on the breath, you can calm the nervous system to be able to handle that initial shock. Once you've been in there for what's really a very short amount of time, the core temperature builds up. And because you're not moving, which really is the only time when you start feeling the cold. If you were in an ice bath and you were moving around all the time, you'd really feel the cold. But obviously what we typically do when we step into ice baths is we just sit there and relax, and we feel it, and we get a sense of the energy that we're creating and the core temperature that's building up. So after a short period of time, once you've calmed your nervous system with the breath and you slow your breath down, you'll actually find it's a lot easier than you think. Now, if you were to jump in an icy lake and do what Wim Hof does, and swim underwater to be, to reach world records, that's a different matter altogether. You're moving in the cold, and that is very much a mind-based practice. But yeah, I think people often have this fear about the cold, especially ice baths, but they find when they do it, it's far easier than they ever imagined. And some people actually prefer it to cold showers, because cold showers, of course, especially if you've got, so I enhance my cold shower in the summer by adding a drawstring bag full of ice around the shower head, around the rain shower head. And then the water, cold water that is cold, then filters through the ice, and that just adds an extra element to it. But for a lot of people, even just a normal cold temperature from the cold shower, because it's hitting every bit of their body all the time, their body does eventually, develop that core temperature warmth, but you're still getting the all the time, because the water's just hitting you all over the place. So yeah, do give the ice bath a go. I think you'll see great reward.
And David, the first conversation we had, you told me this anecdotal stories of somebody developing new arteries. Can you talk a little bit about that? I think I found it mind-blowing. I think this is worth sharing with the audience, right?
Yeah, okay. So two things, actually, because I'll build in my story as well to that. I should add at this point that this is not a story that has scientific backing to it.
It's only anecdotal.
It is anecdotal. So I met with a Wim Hof instructor and his partner, and we were having a wonderful, it's on my YouTube channel. We're having this incredible conversation about the cold. And at some point we spoke about our own story, and I told my story about having a vasectomy. And then 2 months later, because obviously you go through the tests to make sure that you're not still producing the sperm, I then get a letter from the consultant saying that my vas deferens, the tubes, had reconnected. When you look online at the percentage chance of that happening, it is something like 0.1%. So it can happen naturally. And, if you think about it, maybe because I'd optimized other areas of my life, maybe I had optimized a kind of a healing process, and maybe it wasn't due to the cold therapy that I was doing. But I still highly suspect it was probably due to the cold therapy, because of what we know it's capable of doing. Beyond it just being anti-inflammatory, it does have this healing property. Now, even more interestingly, this guy, he didn't know he had a heart condition. He didn't know that one of the arteries to his heart were blocked. And only when he started feeling strange, and they ran a test on him, that they discovered the problem with his heart, that they were then able to tell him. But what's really interesting, although you do need an operation, what's really interesting is that your body created its own new artery to the heart. Realizing that one artery was blocked, it grew a new one. So amazing. He obviously was, just like me, a proponent of the Wim Hof method of cold therapy, and him even more so, because I do ice baths, but I don't do it as often as I do cold showers, which I do every day. For him, I think he really did dive deep into the ice therapy. So yeah, as we say, it is anecdotal, but at the same time,
yeah, it is totally anecdotal. There's no way it's scientific evidence. We call it scientific evidence, but based on these anecdotal evidences, I kind of came up with a theory after talking to you.
Great.
My theory is that regeneration is all about dodging the body to tell, hey, we're somehow in danger. We need to go in the regenerative or the protective mode. Yep. Like be it like if you think about skincare, microneedling, right? You have a little bit of injury, so the body sends those good material to heal. But that's for the skin, the external, right? I would tend to say that when you're taking cold shower, you're probably sending the same signal internally to your heart. Like, heart starts, you're breathing, your heart starts really pumping. So this is where you're actually directly talking internally to those organs that, hey, something is wrong. You need to be in the protective mode. Probably, this is my theory, probably the body is sending all those good material, regenerative material to internal organs to say, hey, go to the protective mode, regenerate yourself, and so on. This is the theory I came up with because I really loved your anecdotes, and I thought about it.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and it taps into that hormesis idea, doesn't it?
Right.
And of course, the what doesn't kill us. And I do think, well, I'm a big, what I teach others is all about kind of the stress response and how we often perceive stress as bad, and we only ever see stress as bad, but actually stress is good too. When you know how to control it and when you use it effectively, it can actually cause you to adapt and change. Short bouts of stress cause this adaptation that can be in a number of different forms, psychologically and physiologically. So yeah, right. I totally agree. I think that's a great theory, and I think 10 years time we're going to know a lot more about this stuff.
Totally. I'm really excited. Yeah. So thanks so much for sharing the stories. I loved it, and I thought the audience had to know those two anecdotes that you just mentioned.
No, that's really good of you, actually, because that video that story does come on is a number of years old now. So I don't think people ever watch it. So I'm glad you asked me that question to bring that story out again. Is there anything else that you think people ought to know, or something that we haven't yet covered that you think is worth us discussing?
Is there anything worth discussing? Well, I mean, I think you asked very, very important questions. If there's one thing that I want to say in the end, based on the entire discussion, is your body, your mind, your brain can do much more. Do not compromise. Do not believe your doctors all the time. Take them seriously. But if again, I'll tell one anecdotal story here about myself. In my mid-20s, I had this impingement syndrome, on my left shoulder. And my first doctor told me that I have to go through surgery. I didn't want to believe that. And I went to other doctor, and he prescribed me physiotherapy. And, it took me 7 years to recover. 7 years later, I was diagnosed with no impingement syndrome. So do not believe that when a doctor says this is not possible. Everything is possible. You can actually optimize everything. But the most important thing is start early. Start early. I think I started not early enough. I should have started in my 20s. 20s is the best. 30s is also bad. I mean, even if you're in your 50s, 60s, doesn't matter. The best day was yesterday. The second best day is always today. There is no such thing as late. I mean, wherever you are, you gotta start. Take care of your body. Take care of your health, because the medical science, another amazing example that I like using, the medical science is always concerned about if you're sick or not. For example, my family doctor used to tell me my vitamin D level, which was around 30 to 40, was good. But 30 to 40 is below 30 means I have some medical condition, like they have to treat me. But 30 and 40 is not optimal. Optimal for me is 80, right? The high performance. You have to look at the high performance people. People who are extremely healthy. Their level is something that you should target. This is where I think the whole industry of high performance is coming up. It's not conventional medical science. Medical science is just there to check if you're barely healthy, if you're diagnosed an illness or not.
Yeah,
right.
Totally. I totally agree with that, actually. And also they're somewhat limited, and it's not their fault, especially in this country, especially with GPs. They don't do any continued professional development. They don't have the time to do that. So therefore, they're working off of old data, off of when they were first trained. So I said to my doctor at one point, I'm going to get rid of my asthma, by the way. And she sort of smirked and said, okay, good luck. And I knew that I could, because I knew certain breathwork practices that I could follow through Buteyko and Wim Hof and pranayama, and I knew I could get rid of it. So the belief was there, which helps.
Did you just say that you got rid of your asthma?
Yeah.
Wow. I have to introduce you to my sister, who is a neurologist, one of the co-founders of Brainvincible. She suffers from asthma, And I have been telling her, look, there is a way to get rid of it, but she is no, asthma, you cannot get rid of. There's no. And I think this would be amazing. I have to tell her about it. This was great. So to the audience, here you see another example that do not believe in it. Again, I'm not bashing the doctors. They save our lives. I must say that I respect them. We need them, but in certain cases, we don't know everything. There are things beyond our knowledge base that we have gathered till today. So that's what you can leverage.
100%. Exactly right. They have a role. They do an incredible job. They have incredible knowledge, but I would have to assume most also know that they're still, regardless of the amount of years of training, they're still limited, because we're all limited. We're all still learning, and the only thing you can do is continually learn. But if you don't have the time because of the hours and energy required for your job, if you don't have the time to continually learn, then you're not giving the service that you could give. You could optimize the service that you're providing, but unfortunately in this country it's just not possible. But yeah, absolutely, you can definitely get rid of your asthma. Now, mine was exercise-induced asthma. I know some people get asthma that was far worse, but yeah, I then went back to the doctor, I can't remember how many months later, and received the letter that said, Mr. Florence, you no longer need your medication. I stand corrected. You've got rid of your asthma. So yeah, Buteyko, if people are watching this, Buteyko method is the key one. And that's something that if you've read the book, The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McKeown, it is in there. Wonderful book. And a lot of it is really just about sort of breath holds, increasing your tolerance to carbon dioxide. Absolutely, it is definitely possible. Really interesting stuff. What a great conversation.
Amazing conversation, yeah.
Where can people find you? I know that obviously there's going to be people watching this that I think will definitely be interested in, well, I for one would be very interested to hear the sound of my mind through that training. So where can people find you?
Go to brainvincible.com and get in touch with us.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And is there any other sort of is that the only thing you want to impart, or is there anything else you'd like people to be aware of as far as websites are concerned, social media? I don't know whether you're on social media, but is there anything else that you want to pass on?
Well, you can follow me in Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, at Dr. Hasan Akram is where you find me. Yeah.
Hasan, what a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed that. I have a feeling actually that we could probably sit here for hours and touch on so many different topics. So I'm really grateful for this. I'm really grateful for your time. So I know you're a busy man. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David. So I think we should have a follow-up, and the follow-up would be if you could come to us and do those training and all those. Now I have another reason to follow up because of the asthma thing you said. So I would be really, really interested in that.
Yes. Well, I've realized that my role in life, in part, is to be the human guinea pig. So absolutely, that sounds wonderful. Well, let me first of all just say thank you again. Really appreciate your time and energy for being here. I hope those watching found it just as interesting as I did. By the sounds of it, there's more to come. So thank you, and look forward to seeing you again.